Hello everyone, welcome back again to Angela's Craft Room. Today I've got this vintage card that I've created to share with you today. Now the stamp set that I used for this particular one was from Stampin Up, and it's one of their new, it's actually a Hostess stamp set. So if you spend so much with your demonstrator, you can ask her, how do you get this? So if you really like this stamp set, if you really like the vintage look, you're going to really love this stamp set. So it's called Very Vintage, and it's available 2018 from June. So yeah, so if you like it, contact your hostess, your demonstrator I should say. Okay, so with the original card, I'm going to change it a little bit, but it's still the same sort of thing, and I'm going to show you another product that Stampin Up have brought out, which I think is really lovely, that will really suit this vintage look. So we'll get started. So to start with, I'm going to have a piece of basic black, and I know Stampin Up don't have the black cardstock anymore, but I still have some and I really like to use it. But you can just use what colours you like. So this is 11 inches long by 4 1/8 of an inch wide, and then I've scored it at 5 1/2. And then I've taken a piece of Very Vanilla, which measures 5 1/4 inches by 3 7/8, and I've just, using my Stamparatus, I've just stamped the flower so it's just going off the cardstock a little bit. So I'm just going to quickly glue that in. So that's just going to be inside my card. It's just a bit. Okay, so that's just going to go inside, and you've still got plenty of room to write whatever you'd like to write inside the card. I'll just give that a little rub so that it adheres to the inside nicely. So I think it really looks lovely on the Very Vanilla. It's a lot nicer than just the plain Whisper White. And then what I did was I cut another piece of Very Vanilla to go on the front of my card as my first mat, and that is cut at 3 7/8 of an inch by 5 1/4 of an inch. So it's the same as the inside. So what I'm going to do to vintage that up a bit, I'm just going to take my sponge dauber and basic grey, and this is one of the new ink pads, the new design. Now I'll just put that there. So all I'm going to do is just dab it on there, and I'm just going to go round the entire, which won't take long. Because when I put the next layer on top of this, you're not going to really see very much of this Very Vanilla mat. So I just wanted the edges to look very vintagey, like I call it the age look. It's just, you know, when something's of vintage age, it's not going to look pretty and pristine. So then I'm just bringing, once I've got a little bit, I've done the I'm just bringing it up onto the card itself a little bit. And you'll see once I glue the next layer on that you'll see that it's not going to show very much at all. So you can see how I'm just bringing that up onto the, just to give it a real aged look. And you could use a distresser tool and scrape round the outside if you really wanted to age it even more. That's another thing you could do, but I'm just going to bring some colour up onto the Very Vanilla. Just on the last side. I could have done this before I came on camera, but I really wanted to show you the process that I do go through to achieve that vintage look. And you might think this looks awful at the moment, but the end process, the end look, the finished look I should say, is really, so I just want to bring in a bit more so it's just off that edge a little bit. And just remember, like, if you found something that was of vintage age, it's not going to look perfect. So that's that layer there. So then what I'm going to do, just take my dauber off so I can show you. I'm going to actually be using this piece here. Now this piece is from a new product that Stampin' Up have, and it's called Delightfully Detailed Laser Cut Specialty Paper, and it's really beautiful. This is one of them, and I just pulled one out of the packet. This is another one, and they're very fine, and you've got to be careful with them. One side is Whisper White and the other side is Very Vanilla. So and you get quite a few, like you get 4 sheets I think in the pack, and they're all 12" by 12", and 2 of them have like card front sort of style there that you can cut down to size, which I've cut them all down to size. And then you also get these awesome borders that are all laser cut for you, and you just get so many. You can see all the little borders in there that I've got. And then the other 12 by 12 that you get, I've cut it all down and put it in my cellophane pack. Just separate it and I'll show you how fine that is. Isn't it beautiful? And that's the Very Vanilla size. And what you can do is you can put that straight down on the Stampin' Up adhesive sheets, And if you just cut out the flower, when you peel it off, it's already got the adhesive on it, and you can just pop that straight onto your card. So yeah, that's what we're going to be using, but I've chosen to use the very vanilla size, and just to save some time, I've just stamped the sentiment already for you, and I've stamped the bumblebee down there. So you can see it's a lot thinner, so we've got to be very careful. So I'm going to use the dauber, and I'm just going to go around the outside. I'm not going to be coming in like I did on the other piece, but you've just got to be, if you just hold it where you're dobbing, like where my thumb is here, I'm holding it to give it a bit more, and you're just hardly touching it. And then I'm just going round, but I'm not going to come on like I did the other piece, but I'll grab a piece of scrap paper, and I'm actually going to age the oval frame inside as well. But all I'm doing here is just putting a little bit on the edge just to continue that age look. But these laser cut frames are just gorgeous. So it's just giving a hint of age on the outside here, and I've chose the very vanilla because I just think the very vanilla looks a lot nicer when you're doing age look rather than the whisper white. So I'm just doing this last piece, and then I'm going to lay it down on a piece of paper, just on a piece of scrap paper, and then we're going to just apply that age look on the center oval. So it just needs just a little bit more down here. So I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap. I just forgot to grab that before I started. So then I'm just going to go round. You need to have it on a piece of scrap like this, and don't rub it too hard because it is very delicate. I'm just putting my dauber back into the ink pad as I need it. And this is just going to give it a lovely age look. So it doesn't take very long at all. I'm hardly touching it because I know how delicate it is. And I'm just keeping it on that inside. And then you've got that look, and see, it's just so lovely. Just love it. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adhere it now up the right way onto that piece of very vanilla. So you can see that we only needed to do the edge on the first mat because you're not going to see that very much. Now I think I'll just see if I can just add Just have to be so careful with it because it's just very fine, and you really only need a bit of snail just on the outside of the edge there. I was going to use Tombow glue, and then I thought it's most probably Tombow glue is going to drench it a bit more, a bit too much. So if you're careful with the snail, but the thing with the snail is, as you know, we have to be pretty careful when we put it down here, because however we get it down, that's how it's going to stay. There's no moving it. So I'll just get my fingers off it. Just have a look at it in the air sort of thing. Just try and put it down straight. And if it's not perfectly straight, I wouldn't play with it. I mean, that's pretty good. And so you can see how that's really giving it the aged look. Now I've stamped the flower on a piece of Very Vanilla, and I've cut that out with the layering ovals. And what I'm going to do is grab my sponge jobber again and just use your scrap piece of paper, and I'm just going to go round very quickly round the edge of it, just continuing on with the aged look. And I think if you use the Very Vanilla cardstock and your basic grey, I find that's the best colour to do this technique. Now I'm just coming on to the cardstock a little bit, and when I've hardly got any, I'm going right into the flower as well. So it's going to have that really aged look. Because we're just going to grab some blends, which won't take long because the artist has done all the work for us on this. So we'll just grab a bit more. And just bring it onto the cardstock. So I'll just give it a little bit of rub into the middle so I get a little bit of that aged look right in between all the flowers. And I find this is easier to do before you start colouring your flowers. So just where it's a little bit more if it's blotchy anywhere, I just like to give it a bit of a rub just to blend that out. So that's nice and aged, and you could just pop that on the card like that if you didn't want to colour it as well, but I think it does add to it if you do colour it. So I'm just going to take the light rich raspberry blend, and I'm just going to use the nib end. I might just zoom you in a little bit just so you can see. I've just got to make sure I don't go off camera. And you literally hardly have to colour these at all. So I use the nib. I did start off by using the brush, the first one I did, and it's just too inky. You only really want to highlight, just add some colour. And I find using the nib end is a lot easier. So I just like to do the flower and just go round. And then we'll just do this one. And you can see just by adding that little bit of rich raspberry after you've aged your image, it does give it that lovely aged effect even more. So I'm not using these markers, like I'm not blending the light and the dark or anything when I do this vintage look. There's just no need to. And it's such a small area. And there's just this one here that I'll do a little bit of rich raspberry on. Some of the areas are quite fine, so you just have to take your time. It's not something that can be rushed. So then I'm just going to grab the light yellow, and using the nib end, I'm just going to quickly, just checking I'm still in focus for you, I haven't crept off the camera. And actually I'll get the dark yellow, I think. This is Daffodil Light in the blends. Oh, that's just come off. So I'll have to fix that, but we'll just go back to the light one. Just add that yellow in. I just don't want to mess around and take more time fixing that, because it's just a matter of putting it back together. So we'll just add a bit of yellow on there, and just on these little flowers here. And you can see, like, the artist has done all the work for you, so all you're doing is adding a little bit of colour. And it doesn't matter going over the deep edged areas that the artist has done. It's not going to take anything away. And then, oh, there's one little flower down there I nearly missed. Just a bit of yellow on him. So I find with this look, you just don't need to add, but just by adding that little bit of colour, it really does bring it up. And then I'm just going to grab the green Old Olive, and we're just going to, using the nib again, just do a little bit on the leaves and we're done. And then we can put this onto the front of our card with a bit more dimension. So you just want to go, you're really just highlighting the leaves. But I find it so easy to use these blend alcohol markers. I just love them because it's just so easy to use them. I can't wait to get all the new colours in the blends. But we can't get everything all at once. But this is literally the only colouring tool I use, is the blends. So that's that done. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue this piece onto here with my Tombow. And I'll show you the two different cards at the end, and you can see whether which style you like the best. So we just want to try and put that on straight. It's a good thing about the Tombow, it does let you move it, and that's why I like using it. But as you saw underneath that laser cut piece, you really just have to try and use your snail, and you just got to try and get it on. So then we're just going to give that a bit of a rub. nicely onto the card. And you can add, what I like to do with the bumblebee, I just like to make sure the ink on the Wink Stella is flowing. And just add a fair bit of glitter. And I just set it aside to dry. So you have to really give it a good squeeze when you want a real thick lot coming out like I do. Okay, so then all we're going to do then is grab some dimensionals, and I'm just going to pop a few on the back of here. But I like the vintage look myself, so I really loved it when I was able to get this stamp set from my demonstrator. So if you're in Australia and you're looking for a demonstrator, I can put you in the right direction there. I have a very good demonstrator that looks after me very well. And she does have a group for her customers on Facebook as well, so you've only got to leave it in the comments below and I'll get you involved in that if you're in Australia, that is. So we're just taking these last few off. Just a couple more. And you'll see the two different styles using the same stamp set and the same technique. So we'll just bring that back over so you can see that. And we just need to put it as much in the center as you can. You're going to have a gap at the top and the bottom of the oval, but I think that just adds to the character. It's just okay. So that's, I'll just zoom out a little bit. So that's our card for today, the vintage one. And this is the one I did. This was the first one I did. So this one just has the laser cut around it, and this one I was able to do the border, which is also in the stamp set as well, and the bumblebee up there. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial today, and I hope you'll give it a try. And thank you for joining me today. Until next time, happy crafting.